Hey everyone, welcome back and for tuning in again live today. It is Monday, April 8th. It is currently 12 noon here on the East Coast of the US. And you are currently watching the Skill Building Monday Drawing Group. And we've got a very special live interview today for you. And if this is working for you, please let us know in the comments and in the chat. And please tag a friend who loves tattoos. Maybe it's someone interested in becoming a tattoo artist. Maybe it's a tattoo enthusiast that you know. Maybe it's someone looking to get their next tattoo. Tag everyone you know. Help us get the word out. It's with your help that we have turned into programs that we have. And welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo community, where tattooers, apprentices, collectors, and the curious are encouraged to join these live streams, real world events to share, inspire, ultimately create their art and tattoos together. We beam out nearly every day, and with your help, have evolved into a quality network of amazing live, on-demand tattoo and art shows that have all been receiving rave reviews. You can find Reinventing the Tattoo in both of the app stores, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, as well as our Reinventing the Tattoo YouTube channel, our Reinventing the Tattoo Roku channel, which has 12 to 15 different episodes going at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as well as all of the major podcast directories such as Apple and Spotify. Or you can do what most people do and just pull up your web browser and do a quick search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and you'll find it all, except for the book, which is still currently out of print. And if you come across a copy of it, please let me know. I would like to purchase another copy. I have one that sits in a glass case that never gets touched. I take it out occasionally, wipe it down with a diaper, and then put it right back. But I'm always looking for a copy. But no matter where you are tuning in from, you can always get the latest, most up-to-date information, all available at www.reinventingthetattoo.com. You can try it out for free. You do not have to get a subscription right away. You can pick one of 3 different options to try it out. You can pick a sample webinar from the Reinventing the Tattoo canon, or you can choose to get free advice about your unique goals from Guy Aitchison, or you can take a comprehensive tattoo history course from Jay Brown. For fellow tattoo history nerds such as myself, you cannot go wrong with the tattoo history course from Jay Brown. It is absolutely fascinating and dives right into the heart and the meat of the history of tattoos. At reinventingthetattoo.com, you can also find a full event schedule with full weekly and special event live stream details. For example, if you wanted to beam into today's interview, ask some questions, or on any other given show, if you wanted to jump in, maybe show off something you're working on, get a critique on something, or ask someone's opinion about something, you can find all of those details on how to join those shows, all available at reinventingthetattoo.com in the event schedule area. At reinventingthetattoo.com, you can also find access to our Reinventing 24/7 channel. It's a lot like our Roku channel. It's got 13 different episodes going at any given time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At the website, you can also find a full host of professional development and on-demand seminars available for purchase from over 20 world-class tattoo artists. For example, if you wanted to go through and learn how to tattoo like Andre Malcolm, there's a seminar for that. If you wanted to tattoo a skull like Bob Tyrell, well, that seminar is on there too. Maybe you're interested in getting your lettering upgraded. Well, BJ has a seminar on there. All of that and a whole lot more, all available at reinventingthetattoo.com. Once again, if this is for you, please drop us a comment, let us know in the chat, and please tag a friend who loves tattoos. We have a number of weekly staple shows we encourage people to tune into. Starting off on Mondays at 9 a.m., we have Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom, where we get to go and discuss basic drawing techniques and strategies to help us get back to our core fundamentals of being a fine artist in this day and age. Once again, that is 9 a.m. Drawing for Tattooers with James Wisdom on Mondays. Following that, you have the Skill Building Monday Drawing Group here with me, Jason Leeser, at 12 p.m., where we get to go through and work on our skill sets and build some of our skills up And maybe it's something we learned the week before in the Monday evening course. Maybe it's, something that, we want better at. All of that and a lot more is practiced here on the Skill Building Monday drawing group. Following that, at 9 p.m. on Mondays, a subscribers exclusive drawing group with Sandy McAndrew of the Reinventing the Tattoo Network. And that will go through, and each week we try to tackle a different chapter in the Reinventing the Tattoo canon. So if you are a subscriber and you have a subscription to the Reinventing the Tattoo Evolution or the Reinventing the Tattoo canon course, or if you have the Monday evening subscription course, you can go through and join us live Monday evenings at 9 p.m. Following Monday, on Tuesday at 11 a.m., we have the Tattoo Weekly Show with Gabe Ripley, Lauren Gregory, and Fawn Baker, where we get to go through and discuss current events and topics in the tattoo industry. Maybe it's new legislation being passed. Maybe it's new developments, pigments or machines or anything of that nature. Anything that might potentially impact the industry. That's all discussed and a whole lot more. And that's the Tattoo Weekly Show, 11 a.m. on Tuesdays. Um, Definitely a great source of current information in this industry. Following that, on Wednesdays at 12 noon, we have the Tattoo Now Show with Rip, where we get to go through and discuss some of the business aspects behind tattooing, whether it's marketing strategies or advertising. It's a way to streamline your client booking process, or, maybe you're trying to get a travel visa to go and work in another country. All of that and more is discussed during the Tattoo Now Show with Gabe Ripley, Wednesdays at noon. Following that and kicking off the week, Thursdays at 6 p.m., we have the Tattoo Collecting 101 podcast with Fawn Baker, where we get to go through and discuss and share some of our stories about our tattoo collections and the adventures we've had along the way. Now, Reinventing the Tattoo does have a number of special events coming up, starting May 17th through 19th in Columbus, Ohio. Reinventing the Tattoo will be live at the Hell City Tattoo Convention, and you would not believe the lineup of tattoo artists that we have coming to this show. Special guest artists include Paul Booth, Derb Morrison, Joe Capobianco, a legend in his own right. Joe is someone I've always looked at their work. Also a great human being. Jimmy Litwalk will be there. Nico Perez, Ty McEwen, James Vaughn, Jesse Levitt, Ron Earhart, Marshall Bennett, and of course, myself will be tattooing alongside my very good friend Seth Mushrush. We will all be there and a whole lot more. So if you're looking to get tattooed at the Hell City Show, by all means, please find your favorite artist, reach out to them, and book an appointment now. Following that, on 23rd through 25th in Columbus, Ohio, Reinventing the Tattoo will be live at the Red Tree Gallery for a whole host of seminars over a few days. A lot of these seminars are going to be more business related. So if you are a tattoo artist and you are looking to go through and take some business seminars in the tattoo industry from tattoo artists that will go through and maybe help you polish up your business skills, take a look. That is Reinventing the Tattoo live at the Red Tree Gallery, June 23rd through 25th. I'd like to go through real quick and take a moment to thank some of our sponsors, some of the people that make these shows happen. Starting off with WorldTattooEvents.com, the largest, most comprehensive resource for tattoo events worldwide. They're constantly keeping everything updated. As we know, living in this post-pandemic era, there are still tattoo events and conventions that are getting rescheduled. So if you are looking for the most current and up-to-date tattoo event and convention information coming to a city or town near you, or maybe it's one you plan on visiting, Lord knows that's how I schedule all of my vacations, take a look at worldtattooevents.com. We'd also like to thank TattooNow.com, technology for tattooers, the leading edge in professional development, management, and digital tools for tattooers of all levels. They're 100% competitive with any type of CRM, mailing list, and scheduling software out there. So if you're really looking for the digital tools to help you get more clients through the door that want to get the kind of work that you really want to do, if you're really trying to streamline your client booking process so that it's efficient and effortless and everything is smooth as silk, take a look at tattoonow.com. They have been a leader in this industry for over 20 years. And of course, this wouldn't be reinventing the tattoo without a very personal and professional thank you to Guy Aitchison at guyaitchison.com. He is the founder and inspiration behind Reinventing the Tattoo. You can go to guyaitchison.com where you can pick up a copy of his biomech encyclopedia, some of his custom tutorial DVDs. Occasionally, I think he still has a few custom tattoo machines for sale, as well as countless fine art prints and the occasional oil painting as well, all available at guyaitchison.com. Would also like to say a very quick and special thank you to Amy Nichols over at the Apprenticeship Diaries, the number one resource for people that are looking for more information on what a tattoo apprenticeship is like. And maybe you're looking for information, maybe you are a tattoo apprentice and you want to know what a not so good one is like so you can compare yours to that. Take a look at the Apprenticeship Diaries with Amy Nichols. It is a great podcast. I cannot say too many good things about it. So take a look. As always, we ask that if you like today's show, please post a positive review on the channel. Help us get the word out. If you would like to host a Reinventing the Tattoo event, become a sponsor of our community, or if you are looking for a fine art or a tattoo critique, you can always email management at reinventingthetattoo.com. We will get back to you just as soon as we can. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down at the bottom of the page so that you can stay up to date with all of the new shows and episodes coming out on all of our channels and all of our podcasts. That way you don't miss anything else. So, without further ado, I would like to go through and thank today's very, very special guest and introduce him. We've got Adrew Swarbrick, if I'm pronouncing that correct.
Yeah, Adrew Swarbrick. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks. I hate butchering people's names, but
All good, mate.
yeah, thank you for joining us. And you're joining us all the way from Christchurch, New Zealand. That's
Yeah.
quite a bit of a time difference there.
Yeah. It's tomorrow there.
Yeah.
We're the 9th at the moment. It's 4 in the morning on the 9th.
Oof. Oof. That's that. Oof. That's rough. I mean, I'm usually up until 2 a.m., but like four
Yeah, I
is a
do it at the other
different.
end. I'm usually up at 5, so it's not like
Oh,
hugely early
okay.
for me, but it's
Okay.
still pretty early.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you work? What's your background like?
From Christchurch, I started tattooing 20 years ago this year. Um, so
Congratulations.
yeah, thank
It's
you.
a
I'm
great
officially
milestone.
yeah, it's a yeah, yeah. Nothing makes me feel more old than starting a job as an adult and then finding out I've been doing it for 20 years. So no, it's quite cool to be at that stage. But yeah, no, been I started here at a tattoo studio called The Left Hand Path, which I later um, became the owner of, and we're still going strong here. So just after or just before the COVID lockdowns, we made it into a private studio, and we've been working out here in rural Canterbury in in New Zealand for the last, geez, what's it, 4 years now, 5 years, crazy, and yeah, just sort of smashing it out here, getting our clients out, and they can look at the mountains and cows and stuff, and I can give them some cool pictures. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, do you have any kind of formal art education or background, or is it mostly just self taught? Because, looking at some of your oil paintings and looking at some of the art that you create, I mean, you're taking everything to a whole new level.
Oh wow,
Is
thanks.
Did you have any kind of formal instruction in that?
So no, well, yes and no. I had it's all self-taught before tattooing, and yeah, I was working in a factory, and just drew in my breaks or when I was supposed to be monitoring my machine. I'd be drawing, um, and yeah, the only sort of formal training I've got in everything in anything is like I went and did a 3-day workshop at Jeff Gogway's about 10 years ago now, and just to do oil painting. So the technique that I use is the one that he taught us um, at that workshop, and I've just sort of run with it a bit. Like I've added in a lot of more of my own sort of how I approach things, but it's all self-taught. It's all watching videos, or I'm old enough to be one of the ones that had to buy books and read
Yep.
them about it because there was no instructions online, or there was no DVDs that weren't just how to paint scenery and stuff. So yeah, it's the 95% self-taught.
That's awesome, man. I mean, obviously, the
Yeah,
stuff
thanks.
that you're putting out, just looking at what's behind you, is impressive to say the
Cool.
least. So,
Thanks.
bravo on that. So
Cheers.
what led you to get into tattooing? Was there like
Um,
an event or just an inspiration or
yeah, I fell into it. It's hard, especially being someone who's been in tattooing like the amount of time I have. Getting into tattooing is such a battle for so many people, and it still was for me. My initial in was very easy, but then it was very very hard to. My apprenticeship wasn't an easy one by any means. But yeah, I got fired from my factory job for drawing on the quality control forms instead of filling them out. So I made a bunch of defective product, and yeah, as soon as I actually did the quality check, just because I used to work night shift, just in the morning before my boss got there, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm done.
wow.
so so yeah, I got over here. You get by law you get paid a certain amount of holidays a year, paid holidays a year. And I had some of those built up. So when you get terminated from your job, you're owed that money. So I got a few weeks worth of holiday pay paid out, and I used that money to get very drunk. But I also had a little bit left to get a tattoo, so I went to get a tattoo, and I had drawn this tattoo over many nights at the factory, and then forgot to take it with me. So I just asked the guy if he had a pen because I'd drawn everything in ballpoint pen, and just drew it in front of him. And he's like, "Oh, are you an artist?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, do you have a portfolio?" And I was like, "Yep." And he goes, "Oh, I'll book you in for tomorrow and bring your portfolio in." And it was, any chance to show off when you're a 22-year-old up and coming artist. And so yeah, I took all my stuff in, and I had a portfolio of probably 200 ballpoint pen drawings. And yeah, he got about halfway through it and started talking about how you would go about becoming a tattoo apprentice. So I asked him if he was offering me a job, and he was like, "I'm offering you the opportunity to maybe get a job." And I went from there. So I just started going in and mopping floors and cleaning tubes and making sure all the books on the shelves were straight and that sort of mundane shit, until we finally, and it's without a word of a lie, handed me Guy Aitchison's book and said, "Go home, read that, and then once you've read that, I'll start teaching you how to tattoo." So I did, yeah, and
That's
that's
awesome.
how I started my apprenticeship. So I sort of fell into it. I didn't really. All my experience of tattoos up to that stage had been just old school sort of stickers. I didn't know many people with tattoos, and I didn't really view it as something that I wanted to get into. And then once I sort of was introduced by my mentor to like Paul Booth and Guy and stuff like that, I suddenly could see the potential for tattooing, apart that wasn't just reproducing other people's work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's interesting too because you said, you were handed Guy Aitchison's book, and I've heard
Mm.
that from so many prominent tattoo artists in today's world. They're like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, it all started. I got a copy of this book from this guy named Guy Aitchison, and it completely changed my perspective on a lot of things." And I mean, I'm one of them. I picked up
Yeah.
a copy of his book when it first came out, when it was a 3-ring binder, and I
Yeah.
still
That's the
have
one.
it to
That's the
this
one we
day.
got.
Yep. And I remember reading that while I was in college and I was going to art school. And
Mm.
I ended up learning more from that book just about fine art, perspective, depth, contrast, the ways that everything worked in the fine art world
Mm.
than I ever did when I was in, college.
Mm.
One of my art professors actually went through and said, listen, we noticed like a pretty, drastic, significant change in the work that you were doing when you first started this semester and the work
Mm.
that you're doing now. They were like, it, and this was someone that was like running one of the art departments.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were like, what was it, something the professor said, or was it something that, that was like an aha moment? Like, we're trying. And I was like, no, in all honesty, like the reason for this shift had nothing to do with taking these classes. It had everything to do with reading this book.
Yeah.
And they were kind of floored by that. And they were like, but tattooing isn't fine art. And I was like,
Yeah.
but it is.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
it's
There's
just
a quite a
awesome to see
pushback
that
from
parallel.
the sort of the art education, especially sort of higher education with that. I don't know what it's like now, but I went to go to university to do my fine arts degree as an adult student while I was like just after I'd finished my apprenticeship, and yeah, they were really impressed with my work. They really liked my portfolio, all that sort of stuff. And the instant that they were like that they found out that I was tattooing, it was just nah, there's no place for you.
Yep.
So yeah, I wanted to go there because I thought there might be something I was missing out on because I could glean so much information from books and little tidbits from people. And I thought, wow, if I can be formally trained in this for 4 years, I'll be awesome. And yeah, it's sort of especially over here, I think in a fine arts degree, you, the practical element of what you get taught is probably only about 20% of the degree. The rest of it is all the things that surround the fine art world, in terms of writing about your own art and critique and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, which
So
is
So what really kind of drives you in life? What is there any specific motivation or anything like that that's really kind of drove you to really progress, to really kind of elevate yourself, to constantly do better, to improve in both fine art and tattooing? Any specific thing you can really point to?
yeah, I guess so. I think the main motivator for me was I was just it was my thing that I was good at. I was born with quite a number of disabilities, and some of them are more noticeable than others. But it was always a point of difference, and you could. I personally felt like I was behind the other kids at school. So when I was, you receive praise for doing something, and it's quite a level playing field. Anyone who can hold a pencil. So I sort of attacked that, and then I spent a bit of time in hospital as a kid. And back then there were no TVs in the children's ward. Was one TV in the child's ward. They used to wheel it in on a trolley. You know how they used to do that at schools, video time, and they'd wheel in the
Oh
VCR.
yeah.
So yeah, so once a week you got TV, but the rest of the time I was just drawing. So mum used to bring in comic books, the 2000 AD magazine, Judge Dredd, stuff like that, and I would,
Oh,
yeah, that was the stuff that I cut my teeth on. So I used to just copy Simon Bisley and Greg Staples, those sorts of artists, and yeah, so it meant the artwork that I was doing as a 12-year-old was just, massive cyborg dudes with chain gun arms, just eviscerating hordes of aliens, like just blood and guts and big tits and shit like that, and but it meant that by the time I got to high school, I had I was I had a big base of skill that a lot of kids probably wouldn't have because they just wouldn't have had the time to put the hours in like I had. So I just sort of that became my thing. That was my point of difference, where I could feel that I would positively stand out in the crowd rather than the way that I felt I stood out, which was in my mind negative. So I just kept pursuing that, and it was always a sort of a dream that I could do something with it. My family's they're a working class family. Everyone's got a job. Yeah. And it was a thing that was like, maybe I could do something else. Yeah, so that was the sort of driver for that. And for me at the moment, and and through adulthood and that, it was just seeing how good I could get. I'd look at I search for artists that floor me, and I'm like, how do they do that? And then I figure it out. I try to figure out how they do the thing that they do, and then see if it's something that I can use to sort of help me express what I'm doing. And I think I've got to the point now that I've filled up that skill tree to the point that I can actually start playing with it rather than just striving to get better. I can strive to sort of just create, be more me. That's where I'm at the moment artistically. I think is I'm just finding what it is that I want to say with the skill set that I've built. Yeah, so long answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer, though.
Thank you.
Phenomenal. So you did touch on Jeff Gogwe and Guy.
Mhm.
Who would you say some of your other really big influences are? Who are some of those artists that you would look at that really floored you, that really kind of made you look at them and say, "How did they do that? That's incredible." Um, you know, uh, any specific people that you really look at?
Yeah, I think early on, definitely because they were doing stuff that I'd never seen done before was Paul and Guy. Um, we had a couple of Joe Capobianco's books in the studio, and I love that shit. And I've had the opportunity to meet him and hang out and stuff, and he's a super duper cool guy.
Yeah.
Such a nice guy. You're putting me on the spot. I've got notoriously terrible with names. But yeah, that sort of thing was definitely right up there for me. And sort of later on, it was Jeff Gogwe's work, just sort of seeing how to combine sort of different styles. Philip Blue, Horiyoshi, that sort of stuff. Just large scale, beautifully flowing, thought out pieces. Really, really impressed me when you can see whether or not it's through sort of brute force skill and hours put into a piece. Getting them composed properly and the focal points and colours and contrasts going together, or if it's an innate ability to render that out of your head. That really impresses me. We see large scale stuff like that where the whole body is one canvas, or you get a dragon that starts at someone's ankle and ends on their shoulder. I fucking live for that stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, a lot of the same influences over here as well. I mean, I think we all started by seeing something Paul Booth did, or,
Mm,
Guy or Jeff, or, for me, a big one was Philip. I remember looking at his stuff and just thinking, like, how did this guy get to this level?
mm,
And how is he coming up with these inspirational things that he's coming up with? how
yeah,
how did he get to the point where he's thinking so outside the box, yet he's still applying it and everything makes sense,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
just
yeah. His works really stand out
blew
for
my
some of the ones
mind.
that. Yeah, yeah. I've managed to meet him a couple of times. He's once again like all the people that are at the tippy top of their game. They're just so nice and easy to talk to, and
Yeah.
he's a very genuine human. But yeah, his work is mind blowing.
Yeah, I'm really just always fascinated. My friend Pete, he lives out in New Jersey, maybe an hour and a half away from where I live. Has a full bodysuit done by Philip,
Oh wow.
and yeah, I mean we're talking, collar to ankles, all the way down to his wrists, and it's every time I look at it, I'm finding something new with it.
Mm,
And it's this
mm,
big koi fish jumping out of water, but it's the same image of a koi fish on both front and back, but it's the two different sides of a koi fish,
yeah. Wow.
right? So it's and where it wraps, where it joins on the body, how all the scales look perfect when his arms are up, when his arms are down, how
Mm,
everything is just so cohesive, no matter which way he's standing or turning or
mm,
what he does, everything that whole image is flawless no matter how you look at it.
yeah.
And it's just always it always floors me every time I hang out with him. I'll just like sit back and I'll look at a part of it and I'll pick out something new. And it's like, man, that's thinking on a completely different level than I've seen a lot of other artists think,
Mm,
you
mm.
know?
Yes,
Um,
starting with those sort of large shapes and flow. Much, yeah, it's all a guy's book, really, isn't it? But
yeah,
it's for me when I'm doing something like that. It's always thumbnails, starting with a thumbnail, and if you can get if you can get something to look interesting and good and flow well when you're drawing it 2 inches by 1 inch for a back piece, um, then then you can only build on that. It will only improve as you get bigger and bigger. If you know what I found is if you start with it too big, you can get way too interested in the cool thing that you want to do, or the particular element that interests you, or the detail, and if you don't have that initial massive flow or sort of weight of the image down for a start, you're polishing a turd. It's not it's never quite going to be as good as it could be. You can see that with a lot of the artists that just do large sort of new style tribal or sort of filigree style tattoos where they do whole back pieces or bodysuits and that sort of stuff, and it's all flow and weight and contrast. And if those can look amazing, and you use those same rules applied to what you're doing, you're going to end up with a piece like that where, as you said, you can go back to it and find more and more things that are just really cool about it.
absolutely.
Mm.
So, what would, knowing that you work very heavily with oil paints and that you're very, very good with oil paints,
Thank you.
um, out, when we're talking art outside of doing tattoos,
Yeah.
um, what would you consider to be your primary medium?
Or,
Are you
or
strictly oil paints? Do you dabble in other mediums as well?
Yeah,
Um,
no, I sort of my bandwidth is only so big, so I've sort of the majority of my time's taken up oil painting. I still do my sketches in ballpoint pen. I because you have to sort of deal with the marks you put down. You can't fiddle with it too much. Start a new one, and if the one that you're working on is no good, keep your drawing. But I do a bit of digital stuff. I use that primarily for um, sort of tattoo um, designs, but I also I'll do like thumbnails or maybe sketches for paintings and stuff like that using Photoshop, just painting on Photoshop. And I've started to I do a bit of sculpture and stuff. I play well, I used to play Warhammer 40k, so I do a bit of like miniature painting and stuff like that. But yeah, I've just started learning Unreal Engine.
okay.
Um, Yeah, which is a gaming engine. It's what they use to do all the background shots and stuff for the Mandalorian series. And I was watching nerd videos on that, how they do that stuff, and I found out that you can get the program for free. Um, so I did, and yeah, that's cool. Just sort of world building in there and stuff. A bit of creativity that's not on canvas. It's like in its own little world. I find that very, very cool. But yeah, the majority of what I do is oil painting or aim towards oil painting if it's not for tattoos.
Awesome.
Hmm.
So have you noticed any kind of a correlation between, say, your oil paintings and some of the sketches that you do and the tattoos that you produce? Or do you try to keep the subject matter for your oil paintings as more of like a separate fun thing that you do outside of tattooing? Or do you try to mix and mash both together?
I found that they inform one another. They have informed one another over the years. So I was trying to do oil painting things when I was first started oil painting, and tattoo things were different. And then I started, some of the things you get to do when you're tattooing because of the restrictions put on you by your client. You have to think outside of the box. How do I make this cool or unique? So you start forming a visual language in your own sort of tattoo work, and I enjoyed that, and it was fun. So I wanted to enjoy it and have fun while I was painting. So I started bringing in some of those elements into the paintings, and then the paintings got weirder, and then the paintings weirdness outstripped the tattoos weirdness. So then I started feeding that back into how I tattoo. So I would love to tattoo this all day like that. I'd tattoo the
Oh,
shit
that
out of
would
that.
be sick.
Like that's a back piece. Somebody get it. But yeah, just the crazier the better, and the more elements, the more different elements that don't go together, the better. I want to um, see how I can combine those things. And yeah, to go back to your question, it's a feedback loop for me. They inform one another, but they have both. The things that I've learned through tattooing have informed the painting, which is then fed back into the tattooing down the line.
That's that's fascinating to hear. Out of all of the interviews that I've done, I get a lot of people that say, I try to keep them separate. I like to try to keep my paintings, and my tattoos. And,
Yeah.
I try to keep one for fun, and then, one's more work related, and maybe it's not always the most fun. Then you get other people that go through and they'll say, oh, well, I paint like I tattoo and I tattoo like I paint. So, it's all one and the same to me. It's just you're using a different medium.
Mm.
But this is the first time I've heard that it's kind of like that progressive feedback loop where you're
Yeah.
playing around with something on in one, and then that's influencing the other. Then you're drawing from that and bringing that back into the first medium. So it's fascinating to see the way that works.
Yeah. It's
It's
pretty
never an
cool.
answer I've had before.
Oh wow,
So that's
I'm
awesome.
unique. I'm a flower. It's lovely. No, yeah, I have heard that other stuff, and I get it. I get keeping them separate, and um, I get how one can be fun and one is more work. But for me, I think I've tried doing that, but the more I think for me, because I was restricting what I was doing and painting so much, I had a set of rules in my head that I was adhering to, whether or not I was conscious of that. The more I let those go and brought in the elements of the sort of freedom that I have in tattooing. It sounds weird because you've got clients and you're quite free, but I really push weird shit on my clients, and a lot of them are the few that really let me go get rewarded with really cool pieces. And I was like, wonder if I could do that. Like I think of a painting, I'm like, nah, no one wants to see that shit. And then anytime I paint anytime I say that in my head, no one wants to see that shit. If I paint it, it's the most popular painting I've done. Yeah, it's weird. Anytime I think, no, fuck, people don't want to see that. I paint it, and then people go, fucking what? And it's because of that. Like there's that. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words, but yeah, anytime I let go of my own restrictions and let it go, the better it works. And so that's what I've done with both of those. I've just sort of like, if I, it's kind of an arms race between the two, is which one can get more weird now. They're both trying to keep up.
Fascinating. So knowing that this is a more tattoo centric show, I did want to
Hmm.
try to dial that back into tattooing.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of categorize the style of tattoos that you do? Would you say it's more weird or surrealist, or maybe it's more, color realism or just abstract, color?
Yeah, I think
Uh,
if I had to categorize it, it would be color surrealism. So just it's I strive to achieve or to include realistic elements, be it the form or the shading. In the tattoos, I try to have them, even when I'm creating fantastical things that can't exist in reality. I try to give them some realism in there, like how they're executed. Um, but yeah, one of my favorite pieces I've done is a back piece of a tardigrade that's made of like a galactic scale tardigrade that's eating a neutron star, and then all of the accretion disk is made of fish. Um, and it's just the weirdest fucking thing, but I've done it in a way that it's kind of believable. It makes sense, and that's sort of what I go for in my work. I try to just wang stuff in there that is crazy. It's just run with my ideas, but then make it cohesive and make it make sense. So I think surrealism works for that because it's, like most surrealists, you'll see it's realistic elements that have been put into an unrealistic environment, I guess.
right on.
Mm.
Um, so if you had to pick like one element that you really try to emphasize
Mm.
in either your paintings or your tattoos, one kind of artistic element to that you really, really try to dial in on, what would you say it is? I through an interview with Jeff that I remember watching a while back,
Mm.
he really tries to focus on line quite a bit and making sure that, his lines are awesome. And if he can have a perfect line drawing, he knows that anything he does after that, it's only going to get better. And, through talking to other people, they focus more on contrast or the sense of
Mm.
depth or color
Mm.
palette, and they really want to have these dynamic colors in there. So if you had to
Yeah.
pick one thing, what would you really say it is?
Yeah, well, I think that's the hardest question so far. One thing, yeah, all of the things. Um, if it's one thing that I think I'm known for, um, that I think I'm consciously pursuing would be saturation. So um, that sort of goes with contrast and color as well. Like one of the things that I enjoy, I love it when it happens, um, is people will see one of my pieces that they've seen online in real life, like at a convention or whatever, and excuse my language, but they're like, "Fuck, like that looks like it does in the picture." Um, and I think that people are so used to seeing things that have been dialed up online, and they're so much more bright, so much more saturated than they really are. My stuff isn't. My stuff is like that. That's what it looks like, and it heals saturated and solid. And I think that a lot of people that are attempting that sort of realism and stuff like that in their tattoos, is that's a thing that they can be overlooked, is that fundamental solidity of tattoos. That's what makes a tattoo a good tattoo, is it flows well and it's solid and it lasts. So even when I'm doing my hyper realistic bright craziness, I try to bring those elements in that are going to give it that longevity. If I do a bunch of bright colors, I'm going to have them right next to just solid black, so that as those colors age and fade, they do so in an order that makes it so that it still looks correct as it ages.
Awesome. So you did mention, you like to work with these really bright colors. How do you really determine your color palette? Are there specific colors you tend to stick to? Are there certain colors you try to avoid? Is there any kind of insight you can give us into your specific color palette? Just looking at
Yeah,
the pieces behind you, I can see, a wide range from these gorgeous golden yellows and some of the buildings to these vibrant neon pinks and electric blues.
yeah.
Any insight there?
I think I have. There's a couple of sort of color sets that I always go to, um, sort of by default. But I think it's less about the colors and more about the sort of contrast in the colors. So I try to, whatever color is the champion color, it could be decided by the client or by me, is I'll just make sure they're contrasting. So there'll be like a warm color and a cold color, and it's super basic, but you can take basic. Well, that's what all art is, taking a very basic concepts and repeating them or making them very, very complicated by, dialing them in. But yeah, with what I do with my color choices is I'll generally go, okay, the main light source, or if there's a light source in the tattoo, that'll be warm or cold, and then the background color or the complementary sort of lighting that's coming in from the back will be the opposite color. It lends a lot of depth, and you can really tweak it to help with flow and showing in form and volume in a piece. So I think that's, yeah, especially with the colors. I mean, like the colors that I think most of mine are known for is these sort of hot pinks and stuff like that, sort of magenta type scale of color, and the mint greens, sort of the neon cold mint green colors are just, I know they look good. I know they heal well. I know they'll really pop against a very, very dark contrasty piece, and I just really enjoy doing that. But there's not really any colors I avoid. It confuses me a little bit when artists avoid using particular colors in their tattoos, and I've heard of various reasons why. Some of them have had issues. I think mainly the ones I've heard of are orange and yellow, lasting their longevity. Early on, I had a couple of pigments a couple of yellows in particular, that just wouldn't go in to some clients. I do pull out all the tricks and they just wouldn't go in. But yeah, I had quite a long conversation a number of years ago with a very well-known tattooist who really avoided using oranges in his pieces because they fell out. And I very nearly just took him at his word and stopped using them, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't, because yeah, I've had a couple of clients come back after 10 years and get their second sleeve done, and all the oranges and stuff are still there. So I don't know. I think some clients or some pigments just might not work with the technique you're using. But yeah, I think those color choices are mainly for me based on contrasting between the colors. I'll pick one that's warm, and then by default I'll pick the cold color, and vice versa.
Right on. Now, do
Mm.
you prefer to work on larger multi-session pieces, or do you prefer to maybe stick to stuff that's smaller, like one shot? Do you prefer to work with, say someone that comes in, wants to get a sleeve done? You're like, sweet, that I know that's going to be, you know, 6, 7, 9, 12 sessions or whatever,
Yeah,
or back pieces, or do you really like to see that tattoo done start to finish one day and then maybe add another piece later and then another piece later?
yeah.
What's your kind of mindset when it comes down to scale of projects?
They're all they're all big multi-day pieces. I I would love to be faster. I would love to be able to smash some of these out in a day, and some of um, the work that I've seen on Instagram, the amount of work that people can get done in a day blows my mind. It's really impressive stuff. But yeah, unfortunately for my poor clients, they're usually thousands and thousands of dollars into a multiple session sleeve, and it all looks like garbage until it's done. I try to in the first or second session, depending on how much I know that they're committed to what they're doing, I'll try to have one bit finished so that they can hold on to that. I'll be like, anytime you see the rest of your arm and think about the money and go, what the fuck is this? Look back at your forearm at that face. The whole thing's going to look like that. You can hold on to that. But yeah, I think large multiple day stuff. It's not what you want to be insta famous. It's not what you want for the modern for some of the aspects of tattooing, where you want that completed picture to be able to show people all the time. And it sucks doing some of the big pieces sometimes, because you can spend 10, 20 sessions on something and then you get one picture of it and here it is. Whereas if you've done 20 small ones, you get 20.
Right.
Yeah, but I personally enjoy looking at other people's work that's like that. I love seeing big pieces and they impress me, and I know the amount of work that's gone into them. I just think they look cooler, so I like the bigger stuff.
Right on. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in the past in creating art and tattoos, and anything dealing with your career thus far? Anything specific that really stands out to you as far as a challenge that you had to overcome?
I think early on, like very early on, it was I, yeah, I think very early on it would have been convincing other tattooists and older tattooists that what I was doing was legitimate and would last. So when I started doing realism, especially color realism, it was not many people were doing it. And excuse me, don't feel that. And yeah, I just remember doing stuff at conventions or yeah, mainly at conventions. I'd be doing stuff at conventions, or they'd see my work, portraits and color realism and stuff at conventions, and they'd be like, "Oh, there's no lines on that. That's just all going to fall out." I tried doing that in the 80s, or I tried doing that in the 70s, and it never worked. And you know, the tattoos need to be this particular way to work or to last. And unfortunately, the only way to prove that that wasn't the case was to do these tattoos, and then after 5 years they hadn't fallen out, and they hadn't faded. And then to give them credit, most of them were like, "Wow, that's really cool, and you've done an amazing job." But there was still the holdouts where the goalposts kept moving. Oh, I'll see it after 10 years, and then 10 years, I'll see it after 20 years, and it's like, cool, man. You can see that. I think that was the hardest bit, was getting that acceptance by the rest of the community at that stage. And then it sort of became the next big thing, where realism was how to impress people very, very quickly, was to do a color portrait or something like that. And there were a lot of people out there that were very, very good at what they did, but for me, those fundamentals were always a huge part of it. You had to have those high contrast and a lot of black in your work to make it hold. And a lot of my work was very, very bright and has a lot of colors in it, and it really stands out. But when you look at it, there's a ton of black. There's at least a third of it will be black. And there were people then that were quite well known that it was just all color, and you can see that it's really good, but that's not going to hold over the time. So I think having that style of tattoo become legitimized in the tattoo industry, I personally felt difficult, but a lot of people did a lot of work to make that happen. So I'll always be grateful to them for their work and that stuff. And that's why I'm very careful not to, if I see a new thing coming out, or I see something that I don't quite understand, I try to understand it before I go, oh, that's shit, and it won't work. because I've had that said about my work, and it was untrue. Yeah. So.
Right.
Hmm.
Hmm. So are there any current challenges that you're facing? Anything current that you're trying to work through, that you're trying to overcome? Knowing that as artists evolve with their work and as we gain more experience in this industry, working with different mediums, we always encounter different challenges and through different stages, right? You
Yeah.
know, for example, Guy Aitchison's working on overcoming challenges now that he didn't have, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Philip Lee is now working on overcoming different things and trying to accomplish different things that, he didn't even think of 20 years ago. Is there
Hmm.
anything now that you're really kind of looking at as far as something that you're trying to achieve or overcome that you think you might want to share with us?
Yeah. I think for me, it's just it's going to sound so silly when I've been tattooing for 20 years, but having the confidence in my own work to trust that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. Because I think early on, especially being a self-taught artist, um, so much of your learning comes from finding influences and emulating them. So you find an artist that's phenomenal, and you go, how did they do that? And then you try to emulate what they do in your own way. And for me, it's sort of looking at my work more objectively, and seeing that all those skills are there. I just need to say what I'm going to say in my own language, especially in tattooing. I've started to do it with the painting, but with the tattooing, I think um, there's a language that is there, um, and it is starting to sort of come through in the style of work that I do, especially when I get to just pick whatever, when people give me complete freedom. And I think that um, a big fear of mine coming through my career is that I would end up an older tattooist, that their work looked the same as it did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and hadn't kept up. Um, and with what I'm doing, I don't think like I can. I love what other people are doing in tattooing, and it influences me, and especially a lot of the newer people to the industry. The shit they're doing is phenomenal, man, and I'm impressed on a daily basis with some of the stuff I see. But I think doubling down on my ideas, um, rather than trying to chase other people's ideas, is the hardest thing for me at the moment, is getting over that self-imposed mental block, where I think I by default think other people's ideas are more legitimate than my own. So I think trusting the skill that I have to inform what I'm doing next is my next sort of hurdle, if that makes sense.
It does indeed. It does.
Mm.
Something I think we all struggle with is, that of self-validation.
Mm.
Um, so I think you hit the nail on the head there. And it's something that it's not just you. I know a few other artists that are out there that are struggling with the same thing. So thank you for
Mm.
sharing that.
Oh, cheers.
Um, if you had to give one piece of advice to any kind of a new budding artist out there, what would it be?
Ooh, tattoo artist or artist in general?
Any kind of artist you can imagine. If there's two separate answers, we'll take one of each. Um,
Yeah, I think the artists in general, and I think this would pertain to tattooists as well, is that don't be afraid to really explore the limits of what you're doing, or to do stuff that's outside of the box as to what you're used to doing. Um, but try to do that with one foot firmly planted in your fundamentals. Like just basic contrast and shapes, and weights of images, and composition. If you can have those down pat, then you can do anything you want to do with them. Um, and when you lose sight of some of those fundamentals, that's when things can go a little bit sideways. So I think that's sort of the big piece of advice is, one, head in the stars but feet on the ground.
I feel you. Awesome.
Mm.
And this is always a question that I like to ask to kind of cap off the interview, because it's always interesting to see the answers that I get to it. But what
Okay.
truths have you found that are simple but not easy about technique, process, the industry, fine art, anything in general?
Ooh, what truths have I found that are simple but not easy? Um, I think for if we're talking just sort of tattoos and technique, it's the most simple thing is make sure your tattoo is solid. Make sure it's solid and it's in there. You can do anything you want. You can do the craziest compositions and just mind blowing geometric stuff or colors or whatever, but get it in there. Get it in there. Get it fucking solid. And if you're not doing that, then you're wasting your time. Your first job is to do a good job, and then it's to be impressive. I think that's the big truth. It doesn't matter how wild the shit you're doing is. If you're not doing it properly, then
Right.
you're wasting your time.
That's an awesome answer.
No, thanks, man.
Something I'm personally going to hold on to. And I think you summed it up when you said, your first job is to do a good job.
Mm,
Impress people second, but do a good job first. That's
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
truth.
Anytime I've come
That's very
unstuck
true.
in what I'm doing, or anytime I've done something that I've been less than happy with, I've lost sight of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anything else you would like to add today? You are teaching at Paradise Gathering this year. That is correct.
Yeah. I'm doing. I'm going to do a speed painting sort of a course thing, so a couple of hours, and we'll jam out some alla prima oil paintings together. It'll be super cool. I do quite a lot of that. I've posted on my Instagram, so if you want to see any of those, it didn't. It's basically you do 10 paintings in 1 hour. Um, so it's a lot of fun. I'll be doing that, and yeah. What else? Oh, I'll be at the Rites of Passage Tattoo Convention in Melbourne in 2 weeks, and I'm exhibiting my paintings in Wellington and possibly further afield later in the year. So keep an eye on that. Yeah.
Awesome. And how can we reach you? If say we wanted to try and get tattooed by you, if we wanted to take a look at your work, your Instagram, or anything like that, how would we get a hold of you?
Yep. So yep, the majority of my later stuff is on Instagram. So that's at LHP Andy, and yeah, if you want to make a booking or anything like that, it's just hit me up through that, and I can give you the rest of it. My website is all painting stuff, so that's Adrew Swarbrick art.com. Yeah, AndrewSwarbrickArt.com, and yeah, they're the main two ways you can get a hold of me. Just hit me up, send me a message. I spend far too much time online, so I'll probably be there waiting to talk to you. But yeah, those are the best two ways to get a hold of me: Instagram at LHPND or AndrewSwarbrickArt.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely enlightening.
Thank you.
Thank you for jumping on and doing this interview. I really, really appreciate it. And I can't wait to ship Paradise and hang out, maybe
Yeah,
do
man.
some painting, and
Yeah,
it's going to be a blast.
yeah, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'm actually going to end the stream here. So thank you once again for your time. I will see everyone again next week on Monday at noon. I believe we've got Mickey Schlick coming in. to talk about some other new exciting ventures he's doing. So until then, stay tuned, keep your hands busy, keep that work coming, and we'll see everyone next week. Cheers.